video, we're going to explore how you can find connections between art and STEM by looking at art pieces. I believe that diverse disciplines and multiple perspectives contribute their individual strands to what we know as integrated STEAM education, making a rope that is stronger than the individual strands are alone. Art pieces provide an immediate entry point for seeking interactions between art and STEM. I'm going to walk through several examples and show you my perspectives approach tool that you can use to generate even more examples. When I say art pieces, I mean individual works of art, the product of art making and design. I also mean looking at artworks and making art pieces. Seeking the science and math that a particular art piece embodies is a great way to explore how artists used applications of science and math through the design process to make their art. Every art piece is itself a piece of technology, a created tool for illustrating an idea. Let's look at a few examples before I introduce the tool that I use with educators to select useful examples and design meaningful lessons for their classes. I taught physics just outside of Washington, D.C., and many students had seen a Calder Stabiel or mobile somewhere downtown. The size and heft of the steel in the sculptures is evident even from afar. So how do these things stay so mobile, turning with just a slight air current? I challenge the students to use images and make models of their favorite Calder to defend their understanding of how torque played out mathematically in the piece. It was also fine with me if they chose a different sculptor's work or something totally different that demonstrated torque around a center of mass, like dance. Hearst uses green formaldehyde to encapsulate animals, making some pretty startling sculptures. But the sculptures have been shown to have a negative side effect, off-gassing. You can ask students, why, physically, did Hearst choose formaldehyde? Is there another chemical that would preserve organisms and have less negative side effects? Art pieces use geometry, scaling, proportion, and ratios. In this example, I ask students to practice measuring the photo in their own table to make a scale factor. Then they must use the scale factor to determine how big they would need to be in order to sit at the table. This painting, for Temnus, allows students to think about the ecologies that this painter must have been surrounded by when Arcimboldo painted it. To pull diverse disciplines together into an integrated STEAM braid, I use my perspectives approach planning tool. I place an artwork, specific piece of STEM content, or even an engineering design challenge, an interesting question, or a current event in the center. I brainstorm all the connections that I can think of in all of these categories: the humanities and arts lens, the social, legal, or local lens, the historical lens, the mathematical lens, the science lens, and the engineering lens. By looking across these, I can usually come up with some kind of interesting challenge or moment for my students to engage in. Let's look at Flavin's Monument 1 for V. Tatlin for a moment. I challenge you to pause right here and try the exercise yourself. Think about the sculpture through these lenses. Consider also these brainstormer questions available on your handout. How does this art piece work? What allows this art piece to be how it is and look like it does? What do I need to know in order to make something like this? Here are some of my thoughts. Flavin is using pre-made fluorescent tubes and getting a white light. There must be some excited gas in there, and in fact, it's a really fascinating bit of plasma science that allows the electric potential difference across the length of the tube to excite the atoms, split off some of their electrons, making ionized gas, and slam back to their atoms, eventually casting off light. I am struck also by the proportion of the heights that makes me think about common ratios in architecture and what kinds of skyscrapers were being built in the 1960s. I'm also enjoying the specular reflection on the floor and thinking about how that makes me think it must be big. It turns out it's 8 feet tall. But what is it? I'm also super curious about Tatlin in the name of the sculpture. and what this moment is. Well, it turns out the unbuilt Tatlin Tower from 1919 to 1920 was a double helix design tower that was never built. This monument to that monument is a little tongue-in-cheek. I'm curious, why did Flavin extrapolate this shape from that one? It turns out there are 39 other versions of a monument to Tatlin Tower, all with different variations on this geometry. So much to unpack and explore. This tool is not only useful for looking at STEAM connections in an art piece that's already made, it's also great for making art pieces that incorporate STEAM connections because it can help you to define the problem within the engineering design process from multiple perspectives. I want to quickly highlight 2 projects that ask students to use science and technology to make art while tethering to other perspectives. In the Museum of Our Times project, I asked students to make an interactive art museum piece using LEDs to showcase something about how we live in today's society. My friend Jordan Pasquilin has a similar project in which students add lights and circuits to hanging wall art. Jordan has agreed to share his project materials with you, and the link is in your handout. We all need a little help, so I really encourage you to reach across the hall, so to speak, and engage other teachers at your school to think through these perspectives. If you're an art teacher who wants to discuss a specific piece of art, share an image of it with your science, math, or STEM colleagues and ask them what science and math they see in the art. These teachers think about their content constantly and will enjoy helping you identify useful content connections. If you're a STEM subject teacher and wish you knew about artworks that exemplified the very content you're teaching, ask your art colleagues. They are experts in art and will love sharing their expertise with you. In the next video, we'll take a look at how art processes are another rich opportunity to connect art to STEM.